Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk. I'm Shekhar Gupta in the compound of the Australian High Commission in Delhi, and my guest today, the only gentleman to have been elected Prime Minister of Australia twice after 49, but even more than that, now a global statesman and a peacemaker on issues ranging as widely as from climate change to old-fashioned peace. Mr. Kewen Rudd, welcome to Walk the Talk. What a privilege.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll bring Priest to the cricket field as well.
I'm not promising that to you. That's not the reason people pay a lot of money to watch us play.
World Cup's coming up. So what do you bet for an India-Australia final?
Well,
is betting legal in India?
betting is not legal in India, but
Okay.
you and I can bet like this.
Okay.
And you can bet a beer.
Okay, I'll bet you 2 beers.
2 beers. India-Australia final.
That's right.
In that case, I'll bet anything that we are winning.
Okay. Well, I'll go the other
But
way. It's 2 beers.
That's one way one of us can win.
That's true. Okay, so you're the witnesses, the viewing public.
Absolutely. and I asked you before we started,
Yeah.
how do I address you?
Kevin.
And you said Kevin, and I said that might be inappropriate. And you said, I don't care, I'm Australian.
That's true.
So what makes an Australian so different, an Australian? If I say it correctly, this is Australian soil in a way.
Yeah. Well, first of all, your attempt at an Australian accent is very bad. I don't think anyone can do an Australian accent. It's a great mix. So what are Australians? Well, without being politically correct, the first Australians are Indigenous people.
Right.
And I respect them enormously.
Who you gave an institutional national apology to when you became Prime Minister?
It was the first thing I did as Prime Minister.
It was cathartic.
Well, it was necessary. We'd been 200 years late in doing it, and white Australians had treated Indigenous Australians appallingly.
Yeah.
And so you just had to acknowledge a reality.
Yeah, I still see on internet stuff floating with pictures of human beings in chains saying they were classified as flora and fauna. Is it actually true?
Look, the history is diverse, but Indigenous people, with very rare exceptions, were treated appallingly. And then there was this whole series of generations through a large part of the 20th century who literally were stolen from their parents, that is, taken into custody, put into institutions or to white Australian families. And many of these folks are still alive, so...
And that's why your apology was the apology for lost generations or stolen generations.
Yeah, and through them to Indigenous Australians overall. So they're the first Australians. We folks, we're very latecomers.
Right.
And what unites India and Australia is our common relationship with the British,
Right.
which is problematic.
Well, at least it gave us cricket. But you,
Close but problematic.
yeah, but you and we were defined differently.
Yeah.
You were still sort of British who had come to the most distant part of the world possible.
Yeah, but think about it in these terms. This is why I think Australians are a bit different. And even Nehru, you may or may not know this, at the first meeting of the non-aligned movement here in Delhi, he extended an invitation to Australia and New Zealand to come as observers. He was very welcoming, because I think he saw us as a little different, because notwithstanding our European pedigree,
Right. He saw you as Asian, in a way.
we were not ourselves colonisers.
Right.
In the case of Australians, unlike the New Zealanders, it's different again, because half of us are criminals. And some would say still so. And, whereas those New Zealanders, well...
And we'll call you anything if you beat us in that World Cup final. Otherwise, you're okay. You're decent folk.
But if you come from, quote, the English underclass, as most of us did in history,
Right.
then, we don't have any inbuilt sense of, frankly, superiority.
Right.
And that,
Right.
I think, makes us a little different. And those who have come to Australia as migrants, like Indian Australians, they've all come there, often with poor backgrounds, and have made their lives.
And a lot of the Chinese now.
Yeah, we got
a lot of the Chinese.
We got about 1 million Chinese, 500,000 Indians, and we come from everywhere. About 190 different ethnicities.
Because in my very inadequate introduction, I did not quite yet mention, among your many accomplishments, the most significant one from our point of view in India, which is your scholarship on China and your knowledge of the language.
Yeah,
Even your PhD was in Chinese democracy movement.
well, I didn't quite do a PhD, but my thesis at university was
Yeah.
on China, Chinese politics and human rights. But yeah, I've spent 5 years at university studying my Chinese. And so I have to say publicly on Indian television, I don't speak a word of Hindi, and I'm very sorry about that.
And you speak Chinese like a Chinese.
Well, it comes and goes. I find my Chinese is better after I've had a few drinks.
over a multi-course Chinese meal. But you even have a Chinese name, I noticed.
Yeah, Kewen.
Kewen?
That's it, yeah.
Kewen.
Yeah, that's the Kewen bit.
Kewen becomes...
Yeah, there's two characters. Ke means to overcome.
I see.
Wen means literature or the classics.
Oh, I see.
So I had this very ambitious teacher
The
who...
overcomer of the classics.
That's right. So my first year university teacher, who was Chinese herself, said to me, Mr. Rudd, you will overcome the classics. 35 years later, no.
No, but you are trying.
I'm trying.
And Lu?
Is a family name. The Chinese have 140, I think, fixed family names, and nothing even approximates Rudd. And so Lu is about the closest you can get.
If we were to give you an Indian name, it would be Gupta, Sharma, Singh.
Yeah, something like that. I'd see myself probably as a Gupta. Yeah, I'd be a Gupta.
A Gupta? You'll make a good Gupta. Having said that, what does India make of Chinese troops causing a provocation every time a prominent Chinese leader comes to India or a prominent Indian leader goes to China? What are the Chinese telling us? And do you buy this argument that maybe PLA could be doing it on their own?
Well, one of the great virtues of not being Prime Minister of Australia is I have no access to intelligence.
Right.
And so I cannot make an independent observation about what the Chinese troops are or are not doing in your disputed border territories in both large sections of that. But I think what I know of the Chinese is that they have a defined and continuing sense of their territorial claims, both continental, which is essentially the border with you and Nepal, unresolved, and the maritime claims as well.
That's with Vietnam, Japan.
Well, frankly, if you go around the loop, it's with 6 or 7. If you start with disputes with Japan, and then of course you've got the internal Chinese dispute with Taiwan, and then you go to Southeast Asia, the Philippines and Vietnam being the biggest intersecting maritime claims. And then in addition to that, Indonesia and Malaysia and Brunei. So it's quite a lot. On their continental borders though, there's 14 of them. China has the largest number of land boundaries with other countries, of any country in the world.
Unresolved?
No, except Russia. Russia has 14 boundaries as well.
Right.
But on the land boundaries, China only has 2 unresolved, India and Nepal.
Which are linked in a way.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's a particular history to it.
Right.
I would hope, Deng Xiaoping would have said something like this. I hope with the fullness of time and with maturity of judgment and with the intelligence of future generations.
I think he said, this generation does not have the wisdom to resolve this. Let's leave it to wiser generations.
Although I do note that Deng Xiaoping decided that he couldn't leave it to another generation with Russia.
And he settled it.
He settled it. I mean, if you think of...
So is that what Mr. Modi should be telling?
You know, the first thing that visiting Australian politicians do not do is give lectures to the Prime Minister of the country in which they're visiting.
You are now academic, Harvard University.
That's true, Harvard Kennedy School. They've been very kind to me. But I think...
and wearing the Asia Society badge.
Wearing my Asia Society badge as
running the
President of the Asia
Center.
Society Policy Institute in New York. I think there must be a way through this border dispute, because I think my friends both in Delhi and China would ultimately welcome an opportunity to settle it. On the specific formula, I can't provide guidance. What I do know is this. Xi Jinping is a very hands-on leader.
And very powerful.
He's certainly very powerful. He's certainly the most powerful leader since Deng and possibly since Mao. And what I have known of him in my dealings with him when I was in office is that he will think, he will reflect, but he will decide and he will act. And so if there are core things to be dealt with in India-China relations, then, and I've not met Mr. Modi, but what I've observed is he's a very decisive leader, then I think this could be a relationship.
This is a good time. And this is the wise one of generations. So if Deng Xiaoping said, he told Rajiv Gandhi, let's wait for a wiser generation. You think the wiser generation is here?
Well, put it this way, I'm no judge of wisdom. Remember,
Right.
I'm Australian, okay?
Oh.
but I could make a slight observation from the side is that these two individuals have very strong domestic political positions.
Right.
Prime Minister Modi has won what we describe as a thumping win
Right.
in the last elections here. His political position is entrenched.
For the first time in 30 years, an Indian party to win a majority.
That's right, and the world knows that, the Chinese know that. With Xi Jinping, the consolidation of his leadership in the last 2 years in the Chinese Communist Party has been formidable. So these two individuals have extraordinary authority within their respective systems of government. So if it's possible to reach a basis for a landing point on the border dispute, which has plagued this relationship for far too long, and as you know, historically
Right.
led to much bloodshed in the early 60s, and the fracturing of the great relationship which existed in the 50s.
Right.
I think these two individuals have it within their political personalities to possibly find a way through. Personally, as someone who has always wanted to see peace in our great continent of Asia, and those of us who hang off the side of it, like us, Australians, we'd like to see a deep reconciliation with China and India over time as well. But it's tough.
We're trying to teach the Chinese to play cricket, which may not be such a good idea going ahead,
Well,
because they'll win everything.
Someone told me, I don't know, I used to play cricket when I was in the embassy in Beijing. I'm terrible at cricket.
You must be the only Australian who's terrible at cricket.
No, maybe I'm the only one who's honest, at least about that. So here is my level of enthusiasm for the game of cricket, and here is my level of ability. So there's a considerable gap between the two.
That's 1 billion plus Indians, don't worry, including me.
And so every year in Beijing, or Peking we called it in those days,
Right.
we would have on a ground a bit like this,
Right.
not far from the Temple of Heaven, the grudge match between us and the British Embassy. It was called the Tianjin Cup. And my only sporting boast in history is coming in at number 10, because that's where my batting skills lay. I managed to hit a 4 on the last ball to win the game.
I see. So that was Ashes in China.
That's right. And we won. And there's nothing better than beating the British, you know that.